The Warhammer world is not a stranger to great and terrible times. The hand of fate stretches far and wide across the mortal realm, and the future of entire peoples can hang in the balance of a few short weeks, days, or hours. Mighty heroes that can change the course of nations rise and fall, locked in endless war with the forces of chaos, undeath, and destruction. Such times are bound to the winds of magic, and these ethereal energies writhe beneath destiny's omnipresent bulk. From this tangled mess of arcane power emerge strange creatures, beings unable to exist in the physical world without a massive influx of magical energy. While many such beasts are terrible to behold, not all are forces of evil. When swirling hurricanes of magical energy draw towards the island of Ulthuan, their arrival is heralded by the appearance of gigantic, rainbow-hued phoenixes with a pair of long, feathered tails of flame. Only seen when the world is in grave peril, these avian creatures are known as Arcane Phoenixes, the greatest of their kind. Unlike the Flamespire and Frostheart Phoenixes that normally live alongside the High Elves, Arcane Phoenixes are not natural animals. Instead, they are living embodiments of Akshi's destructive and purifying elements in equal parts. According to High Elf legend, Arcane Phoenixes dwell at Asurian's side. They act as constant companions of the Emperor of the Heavens, and he will send these birds to the mortal realm when the winds of magic are at their strongest and the elves require aid. In many ways, they are more like demons than like other phoenixes, as they can only exist in the mortal world if the winds of magic wax strongly. If the winds of magic recede, Arcane Phoenixes are drawn back to Asurian's side to await the next crisis. Understandably, the Aesir see the appearance of an Arcane Phoenix as a disturbing omen. On one hand, the birds warn of death and the terrible tragedies to come in the days ahead. On the other, the elves have likely gained the service of a mighty ally, and any who survive the ordeal it heralds will be stronger for it. One cannot be reborn without facing a trial, but few are willing to see their friends and family suffer through the purifying flames of fate. As a result, High Elf wizards will often seek to bind Arcane Phoenixes to their will if one is spotted, hoping to direct its power and avert whatever catastrophe its appearance warns of. When roused to wrath, Arcane Phoenixes are a living terror to face in combat. The flames flickering across their feathers are strong enough to melt mundane weapons in an instant, rendering them immune to fire and incredibly difficult to wound without magical weapons. Their fiery nature also makes Arcane Phoenixes dangerous to approach, and those who draw too near are horrifically burnt. In the heat of battle, the very air burns around them, and a cloud of smoldering ashes follows them as they soar across the sky. Known as Ember Storms, anyone unfortunate enough to be caught in the Phoenix's wake will be immolated. Creatures that are immune to the Phoenix's scorching heat are still not safe from these avian hunters, as their piercing beaks and savage claws can tear apart all but the hardiest of foes. Only the very brave, the very powerful, or the very foolish would dare confront one of these beasts in combat. Of the three, only the very powerful have a chance of surviving the experience. The others will find nothing more than a fiery plume of rainbow-colored death. Even if a warrior does manage to strike down an Arcane Phoenix, there's no guarantee that the creature stays dead. Slain Arcane Phoenixes are sometimes reborn in a fiery explosion, scorching their slayer before resuming the fight. This is not guaranteed, but it happens often enough that fighting one of these avian monsters in melee combat is not advised. While the appearance of any Arcane Phoenix is a monumental event, some of these majestic beasts stand above the rest by virtue of some blessing or power. Several Arcane Phoenixes are noted as having cleansing flames that are exceptionally dangerous to Asurian's gravest enemies. Their fires burn the undead and demons with exceptional vigor, and even ethereal enemies find themselves scorched by its touch. Other Phoenixes bear the blessings of Asurian himself, attacking with the speed and strength of the Lord of the Gods. These creatures are blindingly swift, and whole hosts of warriors can fall before their frenzied beaks and talons before they even realize the Phoenix is upon them. The greatest amongst the Arcane Phoenixes, however, are those explicitly known as Omens. Those that bear the omen of hope lift the spirits of the Aesir with their mere presence, banishing the darkness and giving them the strength to fight on against impossible odds. Arcane Phoenixes that bear the omen of sacrifice grant a very different strength. Any asset that fights near them are driven into an almost suicidal frenzy. When in such a state, the elves fight with an uncharacteristic savagery, but the exertion comes at a great cost. Many warriors die from the effort, their bodies overwhelmed by the divinely infused rage bestowed upon them. The results are telling on the battlefield, but the price is oftentimes more than the elves can pay. Arcane Phoenixes were introduced to Total War Warhammer through the Warden and the Paunch DLC in Warhammer 2. They're the most expensive Phoenix in the high elf roster, and thus in the game, weighing in at 1,850 gold in multiplayer. For that price point, you get a whole bundle of stats and abilities. First of all, Arcane Phoenixes are incredibly fast, with a speed of 120 letting them get wherever they need to be on the battlefield in a hurry. Their melee attack of 46 is decent, and the majority of their 345 weapon strength is armor piercing. Befitting their status as living spirits of Akshi, and Arcane Phoenix's melee attacks are both flaming and magical, making them excellent against demons, ethereal units, and anything that regenerates. They also have the Emberstorm ability, which they can use 3 times per battle. Unlike in the lore, where it functions more like a wind spell, the Total War Emberstorm creates a small, stationary vortex that does a lot of fire and magical damage for a brief period of time. It does pretty good work against armored units, and the animation is absolutely stunning, so you should probably take them for that reason alone. Arcane Phoenixes aren't a slouch defensively either. They come with a baseline of 20% physical resistance and 40% fire resistance, and when your Winds of Magic pool is 15 or higher, they gain the Attuned to Magic ability. This gives them another 10% ward save, making them extremely durable in fighting opponents without magical attacks. Their melee defense of 40 is serviceable, though with 50 armor I wouldn't recommend staying in prolonged melee combat even with that massive ward save. They're better at it than Flamespire Phoenixes, but they don't have the armor, melee defense, or Frost Aura of Frostheart Phoenixes necessary to really duke it out in melee combat. If you do blunder your Arcane Phoenix though, don't worry. When reduced to 10% or less of their total hit points, the Phoenix has a 50-50 chance of regaining half of its hit points and dealing massive damage to those around it in a fiery explosion. This can activate several times per battle, so long as your Arcane Phoenix still has space in its healing cap. Of course, the other 50% of the time your bird just dies without any healing or any explosion. This is colloquially known as a bummer. Even without potentially self-immolating when it could have still been healed up, the Arcane Phoenix has some downsides. For one, they're very expensive. If your Arcane Phoenix dies, that's a decent chunk of your army just wiped out right there. Secondly, they're a bird model. Bird models are notoriously janky in Total War Warhammer, and while the Arcane Phoenix has high enough stats to overcome some of these issues, they're by no means immune. They can duel characters and monsters with the best of them, but infantry, cavalry, and monstrous infantry are a bit difficult to kill without using the Emberstorm ability. Speaking of which, while the Emberstorm ability can be absolutely devastating, it can be a bit tricky to land right, especially against humans. Even if you do get it off properly, it takes your expensive bird out of commission for about 10 seconds. If your enemy has tight micro and decent shooting, they can blow the poor Arcane Phoenix out of the sky while it's busy lighting their friends on fire. Finally, it's a flying unit, so if you play Domination mode, understand that you won't be able to capture anything with it. None of this to say that the Arcane Phoenix is bad, far from it. My memory is a bit hazy, but I'm pretty sure Legend of Total War once said they were a valid Doomstack option for the High Elves, alongside heavy hitters like the Sisters of Avalorn and Star Dragons. Just be aware of their weaknesses in multiplayer, or cost becomes even more important. With that, we've come to the end of our overview of Arcane Phoenixes. This one has been waiting in the wings for a long time, for no particular reason, so I'm happy to have finally checked it off my list. I feel like sometimes I don't give elves enough love on this channel, and it feels good to remedy that ever so slightly. Also, Phoenixes are just a rad concept, especially when paired with elves. I love that Warhammer has tied the two together so intimately, and if I was ever going to start a High Elf army on tabletop, you'd better believe it'd be themed around Phoenixes and the Phoenix Guard. Have you seen those Phoenix models? Absolutely gorgeous. That being said, watch the channel closely for more High Elf related videos after the new DLC drops. I have a particular lore-accurate army that I'm hoping will be possible when Tides of Torment is finally released. That's all I have for today though. As always, thank you to my generous patrons, Emmy, Golden Gander, and Unknown. You are the winds of magic to my arcane phoenix, as your presence fuels my creative flames. Until next time, this has been Sigmar's Chosen, signing off for now.